6-3 podcast. I'm your host, Joel, my co-host, Ben. And we took a week off on vacation. So we missed talking about our preview for the Michigan Rutgers game. Both of us were right, very similar in scores. We never actually made our prediction for the Falcons game, I don't
Nope.
think publicly.
No.
But we both I think I did publicly say that I was like, I'm very concerned about it. You still picked a win, but I was like, this could be a loss with just some of the injuries. I was like, I wasn't sure what to expect. So we'll talk about that here now. The Detroit Lions Atlanta Falcons recap. I was impressed. Aaron Glenn bounced back. I think kind of like it was the beginning of last year. People were calling for Aaron Glenn's head. And he doesn't make adjustments. He's kind of stubborn. He reminds us a lot of like old Don Brown from Michigan, just did not want to make adjustments. And with limited resources at his disposal on the defense, with injuries upon injuries for some key starters, he made it work. Fatu Melifonwu was out there a lot more. Brian Branch played incredible. I think that was a big part of it. Is like Brian Branch immediately stepped in and played like C.J. Gardner-Johnson would have.
Yep.
And an amazing game. Was defensive rookie of the week, I believe.
Hutchinson was defensive player of the week too.
Yeah, I saw NFC. Yep, NFC defensive player of the week. Yeah, so a lot of really nice things. I saw Laporta was even in the running for the offensive NFC rookie of the week.
Yep.
But yeah, just a lot of really good things came together in that game versus the Falcons. But what was the thing that kind of stuck out to you the most?
I think we just dominated them up front, and that wasn't necessarily my concern. I felt like it was possible, but really on both sides of the ball. I mean, I know we didn't run the ball like with incredible efficiency, but we ran the ball for over 100 yards. We were balanced enough on offense to keep guys off of Jared Goff.
Mm-hmm.
And with these injuries to both the receivers and J-Mo being out, and now an injury to Montgomery, although it sounds like he might be back, which would be awesome.
That's crazy too. A lot of people were initially saying it could be 3-4 weeks
but tomorrow, so that'd be cool. Even if it's limited, even if it's like 10 carries, that'd be helpful. They just needed to remain as balanced as possible to like make sure that they're just not constantly just dropping back to pass, because that's not Jared Goff's game, nor is it the Lions' game. They have to stay balanced. So I thought Jahmyr Gibbs provided some bursts, especially in the second half. Thought he had a really good second half. I mean, he had 19 carries, so
19 carries, 80 yards.
Definitely gave him the touches. We'll take 19 for 80 right now. I mean, he's still got stuff to work on, but I think that was on the offensive side, and the defensive line dominated the game, and it was pretty clear, pretty much middle of the first quarter, that the Lions had a pretty decisive advantage there, and the Falcons really didn't have much that they could hang their hat on at all on offense in that game. And then once the Lions went up 2 scores, I felt pretty good about it, because I just didn't see that I didn't really see the Lions defense giving up more than one more score anyway.
See, Desmond Ridder is that type of quarterback to get a team back in it either. He might be able to match competition, but he's not gonna.
Yeah, and he's not a guy that's just like head and shoulders a star, right? I think he's solid, and I think he's solid in that offense. And Bijan is, probably a budding star, but we shut him down,
and we shut down Algier.
Tyler Algier, exactly. So, I think it's just impressive. It was an impressive win. Overall, they just played really well. So, now they have to take that into this week, and this could be a big week for the Lions here. If they win tomorrow, that's two wins in the week, and it's impressive. You turn around on a short week and win too. So, I think that's the challenge now.
Yeah, so I agree. I was super impressed with the way we handled things up front. I think, looking at the analytics behind it, the Falcons were towards the bottom in the league in pass blocking, but they were towards the top in the league in run blocking. And that's why going into this game, Bijan and Algier and Cordero Patterson had all had success anytime they touched the ball. Cordero was out this game, but Algier and Bijan really couldn't get anything going. We saw some explosion from both of those guys on a couple carries, but for the most part, everything else was 3-4 yards and a grind for them to even try to move them. And there's a reason that the Lions racked up, was it 7 sacks in this game too? We saw the weakness. Yeah, we saw the weakness in their pass blocking. The run blocking again was decent for the Falcons, but the pass blocking really took a hit, and hopefully the Lions can carry that momentum. They were pretty lackluster in the first couple games, pass rush wise. They would get close, but they weren't getting there.
Some of that was, I mean, Mahomes doesn't get sacked because of himself, and he does have a good offensive line.
But Geno Smith should have been sacked with missing
Smith
tackle.
should have been tackled, but they were rolling the pocket a lot. So, and I do think, I think the Seahawks are probably going to end up pretty good, for being honest. I think it was Aleem McNeil's maybe best game as a Lion.
I think I liked having Isaiah Buggs back out there.
Isaiah Buggs back was nice. I mean, they were able to rotate
Benito Jones
up front. You saw Aquara get in there.
Benito Jones did.
Benito Jones had a great game.
Derek Barnes did.
Derek Barnes had probably his best game for sure. He was flying around. I thought Anzalone. I thought the linebackers flew around and played well. I thought Anzalone played really well.
I did too.
He kind of set the tone early for that defense. And then Hutch kind of sealed the deal at the end with the 2 sacks, fumble recovery. Pretty much dominated the fourth quarter. So that's what you want to see.
So the weakness right now, I mean, I hate calling out specific players because it's a team game, but Jerry Jacobs has really been struggling the last 2 games. So is it one of those things where he can get out of his own way, or is he going to go the Amani Arawari route where he has really promising?
Bad. I think he had a couple bad weeks. I mean, it happens, especially as a corner, and especially in this defense, he is asked to do a lot.
He initially wasn't even going to be a starting corner. It was supposed to be Sutton and Mosley.
Correct. And I think, if we get Mosley back, I think maybe then he can kind of settle into a secondary, a backup role. And I think that's kind of what he probably should settle into. I still like Jerry Jacobs. I just don't love him, right now, the way he's playing, obviously. And I don't love him in like a highlighted role like this. He had such a good year. He had a good year last year even. But it's just one of those things where I think occasionally, like, he can get exposed, and it happens. And it happens even more in this defense because he is singled up a lot right now. And that's just because Aaron Glenn plays a good amount of man-to-man single coverage. So it's going to happen, right? He's just got to have a short memory, bounce back. I could see him having 3 good games in a row now too. So, we will see where it comes from. I don't anticipate him being like an elite corner, but they do need him to be decent, and that kind of changes the perspective of that secondary.
So, Tracy Walker took on a full game role, played every single defensive snap this past week. But they played a lot of Iffy Melifonwu too. I think Iffy got almost 50 snaps on defense. And even when and if Kirby Joseph is back this week, they might play a little bit of Iffy even like as a linebacker, like his brother Obi did. Obi kind of moved into linebacker for a little bit, but I think Iffy's got more potential. They're both big guys. And maybe they kind of, if they want to have a speed linebacker, coverage linebacker in there, Iffy may not be a bad plug and play in a situation like that when it calls for it. But I agree. Anzalone made some incredible plays. The motor was running for him, probably as good as it's ever been. The injury report now going into Green Bay, they've already ruled out 3 key guys, and then Zane Anderson is a special teamer, but Devondre Campbell, who was like, I think like an all-pro for him last year.
Yep.
And then their 2 starting offensive linemen, David Bakhtiari, who I feel like hasn't played since week 3 of last year, but then they've got Elton Jenkins. Elton Jenkins is also not playing, so that's a key guard out. Aaron Jones and Christian Watson are a game time decision, but leaning towards they're probably playing unless some pregame setback happens. On the Lions end, they've already ruled Jason Kabinda out, which means they've called Daryl Daniels up from the practice squad to probably play some H-back. Matt Nelson and Hel Vitae are already ruled out. Taylor Decker and Jonah Jackson are game time decisions. So this really is going to be a patchwork offensive line.
They're going to need them to play, and I would anticipate Decker and Jackson playing, especially Jackson.
I think most people are leaning towards Jackson likely will play, but he does have a thigh injury right now. Decker's still trying to recover from the ankle injury. Seems like Ragnow's on here every single week just with can't get rid of that inoperable foot injury.
Right.
Kirby Joseph is game time decision. David Montgomery is surprisingly a game time decision. And maybe even we get Emmanuel Mosley from his knee hamstring injuries back
Yep.
as a game time decision too. So there's some
Yep.
key guys, but even if we get 4 out of those 5 guys back, like I feel really good about our chances.
Yeah, I feel good about the chances. I am concerned because the Packers pass rush is good. I think Rashawn Gary had 3 sacks last week. And that's
And they
what
still have Preston Smith, right? So.
Yeah, that's what worries me in this game. The Lions cannot get into consistent drop back game, right? And they aren't that kind of team. Remember, they're a play action, they're run the ball play action team, right? And quick game as far as any kind of drop back stuff. They're not just a drop back and throw it team typically. But if they get in those situations, I feel like the Packers are going to feast. And that can kind of ruin a game right there. So that's my worry. But if the Lions can control the ball, control the line of scrimmage enough to run the ball, a decent amount. It doesn't need to be, you don't need to run the ball for 200 yards. They just need to stay efficient. And then hopefully lean on the defense a little bit. And hopefully the D-line again wreaks some more havoc. I mean, you got to remember it's a short week for both teams. So it's not like not like no one team had a bye or anything like that leading up to this. So it's a short week for both teams. Both teams are banged up, as all teams are right now, coming through the first 3 weeks. I think it'll be a battle. I feel good about our chances, but I do think it's going to be a battle. And you've seen these Thursday night games in last year, especially, saw they kind of can get ugly because both teams are on short rest and beat up, and yeah, they can just not get. They usually aren't great clean football, but I think the Lions are right mucking it up. I don't think they would struggle in that type of game. As long as they can limit turnovers, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, so Jordan Love is so far playing like they got another Pro Bowl quarterback. Yeah. Unfortunately, we'll see how long it lasts.
Yeah,
but he's played very well, very efficiently, made great decisions, moves well when he needs to in the pocket. Everything I've seen just seems like he does a pretty nice job. So I think losing some of those offensive linemen, I think even Zach Tom, who's probably going to have to step in and play tackle, is going to be a little banged up.
Yep.
So they're really only fully healthy with John Runyon Jr. and Josh Myers.
Yep.
Rasheed Walker's going to probably have to play where Bakhtiari can't. Who's their tight end? Didn't they just draft a tight end too? I'm trying to remember. Luke Musgrave, right? So Musgrave's also been a key check down. So linebackers are going to have to stay on him. Maybe if Melifon will try to keep on him. Dobbs has played well. Jaden Reed has stepped up and getting Watson here. It's gonna from a wide receiver that team group that on paper doesn't look very good. They're exceeding expectations so far because I think Jordan Love is exceeding expectations. We already knew that they could potentially have some decent balance because of the run game options that they had with AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones. So yeah, I think it's going to be again working that winning up front again is going to be the thing that's going to hopefully take us home, and that's going to go with the defense and offensive line, depending on how healthy they all are. I would say Sam Laporta has been a very pleasant surprise. You never expect rookie tight ends to do this. In fact, if you historically look at even some of the best tight ends of all time, rookie years not good.
Great. Yeah,
not good. In fact, the last rookie tight end that's done any semblance of good is Jeremy Shockey back in like 2002. It's very rare. And Sam Laporta, I don't know how long this is going to be paced for, but he went off last week. I think he's leading all tight ends in the NFL in receiving yards after three games. So that's impressive.
He's leading them all in receiving yards. He only has less catches, I think, than Hawkinson, but he has more yards than Hawkinson. Hawkinson has like catches. Hawkinson's had a lot of catches, but they're 0-3, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, he's been a check down thing, and he also was part of the reason that they did not win last week. But yeah, I think that Goff has built some pretty solid rapport with him. Both teams are now 2-1. And I think the Lions coming off a 20-6 home win over the Falcons after the Packers just barely skidded off 18-17 comeback win over the Saints. Again, a Derek Carless Saints. I mean, that's Jameis Winston's fine, but he's not
You know,
Derek Carr.
especially thrust into that. I mean, he's probably one of the better backups still, but yeah, I agree.
So picks wise, what do you kind of expecting in this
I like
game?
the Lions 23, the Packers 14. I'll go with the 9-point.
23. That's not bad. I think it's going to be kind of a weird score. And like to your point, we've seen short weeks, Thursday night football games, just a little more sloppy. Just with teams being banged up, short week. How much are they going to able to adjust the playbook? So most teams that study film are kind of able to pick up on what's going on. I would say I'm going to try to think of a weird score. I'm also leaning the Lions. And I think right now, I think they got to keep doing what they're doing, punt and kick those field goals when you can. I think that worked out for them last week. They made good decisions on fourth down. Yeah, I'll say maybe it's not going to be that weird. I'll say 20, Lions 20, Packers 29. Are they gonna the Lions gonna
I like
repeat?
that. I was thinking like 3 field goals, but yep,
Or it could be a touchdown and a safety.
could be. That'd be weird. That'd be weird.
Who knows though? That the defensive front again, Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt, some solid dudes up there.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll say 20-9 or 20-12. However that gets there, somewhere around there.
Okay.
Okay, cool. We'll run with that. Let's go to Michigan here. It's been an interesting Michigan's 0-3 against the spread. 0-3-1. They're 0-3-1 against the spread. So they have kind of started slow against teams that maybe they should just be raking out. But they figured it out real quick in that second half against Rutgers. Pulled away a key interception with Zaner still there. They looked really good in that second half. And honestly, there's a lot of people that are still writing off Michigan doesn't look like a top 2 team for sure. Like the defense looks like a top 2 team. The offense hopefully can start gelling and eventually match that top 2 level that the defense is bringing. Right now, the offense somewhere around maybe a top 12 team. So you meet in the middle and they're playing like maybe a top 6 team in the country. I'm not like, the homer in me says
day, like a lot of these at the big games at the beginning of the year are just going to be sleepwalks. And hey, let's just get through it. Not necessarily get through it, but like go out there, take care of business. I mean, dominate to an extent, right? But I just don't, again, I don't see teams scoring a ton on this defense, at least early on this year. Like the first 7-8 games, even like until Penn State. I mean,
the defense looks really good. The defense looks good.
Who's going to score on this team, right? Like who's really going to score, like consistently score? Like they might get a big play here on a broken tackle or something, or a couple field goals, or you know what I mean? But who's going to really sustain anything and have something that they can consistently go to that works? I don't see that right now. And some of that's a detriment to the Big Ten, right? Some of that's because the Big Ten's not great, especially as far as a privileged offensive league. And the other thing is Michigan's defense, especially up front, and really actually across the so we can it's pretty easy to say that. So some of these games, because of how Michigan plays, you've said this for 3, 4, 5 years now, because of how Michigan plays, sometimes it's just not flashy. They're probably not going to put up 50 points, especially with new clock rules. There's just no time to put up 50 points anymore. Michigan only had 8 drives against Rutgers, right? Real drives. The last one was like garbage time that didn't really count, right? Like they had 8 real drives against Rutgers. Like that's not, they ran 50 like 4 plays. Against Bowling Green. They ran 44 plays. Like I told you the one stat where like that was the least amount of plays they've ran in a game since the game that got canceled after halfway through the third quarter in 2011, right? So like,
I see Rutgers, JJ McCarthy had 62 snaps against Rutgers.
yeah, so that's probably they 62 plays then, because he took every snap. So 62 plays. It's still not very many. They averaged last year, the last 2 years, Michigan games in general averaged 140 like 2 plays, right? Through the last 2 years, right? Right now, the Rutgers game was only like 101 or 106 or something like that total between the two teams, right? And the Bowling Green game was a little bit more. The ECU game had the most snaps, and that was 120 something, right? That's still 20 less plays than the previous. That's like a drive for each team right there, right? Or maybe 2 drives for Michigan, depending on what happens, right? So that's a big difference. And I think the way they play, they don't run no huddle. They run the ball and they line up and they run the ball again. They line, you know what I mean? Then they take their shots when they get the chance. I just don't think it's conducive to like massive blowouts. But I also don't see teams really threatening this team until they get to maybe a Penn State or a Ohio State or hopefully
Maryland might give them
Maryland's looking pretty good, so that might be tough. But those last 3 or 4 games of the year, yeah, that's when it all kind of comes together. But
so yeah, I think the defense under Jesse Minter still looks as good as it could be. I'm
I think it's
super
better
happy
last
with the
year.
defense. And I think that stuff will continue. I think they'll even battle against some of these really solid teams. Hopefully they're battle tested by the time it gets to that point. It's to me, I'm finding that it gets a little more stale where they've been so elite for so long as the offensive line. It's not getting the same push as they have. And I don't think I'd be shocked if they want to Joe Moore again this year. I don't know exactly if I can pin out the exact weak link other than
Tackles.
Yeah, is it Trente Jones, Miles Hinton, Ladarius Henderson type of deal? Carson Barnhart, probably not exactly who you want at that point.
I think the problem with the tackles is, one, they need to just decide on 2 and stop rotating them. And we'll see if they end up doing that. And then 2, I think they just, I mean, they're just not quite to the level. I think you'll see it improve greatly if they just decide on 2 and just let them gel. I think they were just trying to let it battle out. And I think that's fair, I guess, through the first 4
Just give it to Andrew Gentry, honestly.
Yeah, sure.
Jeffrey Percy and Andrew Gentry, and leave it alone.
Sure. But I mean, I like the idea of having Ladarius Henderson at left tackle and moving Barnhart over to right tackle and just riding with that. I think that's your best pass blocking.
Line. He struggled a lot every time I've seen him. It hasn't been pretty.
No, he's either like really good, like just absolutely mauls some dude, or just gives up whiffs on a guy and gives up a sack. So it's like, all right, like you can see the potential, but he's not there yet. So
I like Drake Nugent a lot. I feel like he's filled in admirably for replacing Olu.
And the guards are
I mean the guards are upper echelon in the entire country. So that's not a concern, but I see that's where maybe they're not getting the same push. The running backs aren't finding the same space. JJ's having to move around a lot more than usual back there. It just seemed like it was so easy for JJ to find time. I think the wide receiver weapons, like with an elder Cornelius Johnson and Roman Wilson, having that experience there, and then the upcoming of like Tyler Morris, Carmelo English, Frederick Moore, Samaj Morgan, all played pretty well. Colston Loveland continues to get better. So there's a lot to like about that. To me, I'm only finding fault right now with the offensive line, and obviously, you win games in the trenches, defense and offense.
I think it might just be a little bit different. Like, I don't think it's going to be is it going to be the elite mauling offensive line they've had the last 2 years? No, I still think it's like a top 10 offensive line, though. So especially when it comes together, I think it will be a top 10 offensive line. I just don't think it's going to be like ridiculous, number 1 offensive line in the nation level, right? So I still, but getting Blake Corum fully back and like kind of understanding what's going on, I think they still need to feed Donovan Edwards and get his feet wet in both the passing game and the running game. I think he's going to get better. I think you're going to see it kind of come together a little bit more now. But I think they just need to settle on 2 tackles and just ride with them. Because I think a lot of offensive line play is just like meshing and gelling together. So if they do that, I think you'll see it get better. But again, I don't think it's going to be as good as the last two, but I still think it's going to be good.
Well, I mean, we're seeing the running backs average 3.8 yards per carry right now. That's not ideal. That's not what those guys are.
Quorum's like 7 though.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Quorum and he had 4.6 last week, but I think, and he's had a couple
7
slower.
going into the game.
Did he? Okay. Well, I know that it was 2.6 for a while there for Donovan Edwards. They're both so talented, and it's like I want to see some more action. I want to see Quorum hit his 100 yards. I want to see Donovan Edwards hit his 100 yards.
I just want to see them both healthy by the end of the year, so that we can actually put the fear of God in some of these good teams with both of them out there. That's what I want to see.
Right. Well, how much of the fear of God do they put into the Nebraska Cornhuskers this week?
I actually like Nebraska's defensive front. I don't like anything else about that team.
Wow.
So
not even Heinrich Harburg?
No, and he might not even play. He's hurt. They might go back to Jeff Sims, who makes a habit of throwing the ball.
How about Chubba Purdy?
No, he's bad.
Last time Chubba played us, it didn't go very well.
No, and here's the thing too: Blake Corum does lead the country in touchdowns. So
does he? Oh, he had that one game where he had like 3 or 4, right?
He's got 8, so he's tied for first. And then Roman Wilson is leading the country still in receiving touchdowns. So I know this offense hasn't looked like ridiculous like we thought it might, right? But it's still been really good. It's just not like, Washington's offense.
I mean, and JJ's been really solid outside of that one game where he had 3 picks. Right. That was just, and he got his own head. You could tell he got in his own head there for a minute.
Right.
JJ's usually not a type of guy.
6.1 yards per carry. I mean, you live with that. 58 carries, 351, 8 touchdowns. Like, that's still pretty good. So
yeah, some of the notes I took in on the Cornhuskers, they come into the matchup with a 2-2 record for the season. When they last stepped onto the field, the Cornhuskers took home a win by a score of 28-14 against Louisiana Tech. Who cares? They're Bulldog. That's probably one of the worst Bulldogs in Division I. Heinrich Harburg did have a touchdown, walked away from the game with 107 yards on 8 of 17 through the air. He ran 19 times for 157 yards, so he does add that element of the game. Finished the game with 8.3 yards per attempt. Cornhuskers secondary gave up a completion rate of almost 65%, allowing 292 yards on 27 of 42. So the pass defense, I think, is going to, again, if they did that against Louisiana Tech, I can only imagine how it's going to look against Michigan.
Right.
Nebraska gave up 21 running attempts for 46 yards. So yes, that's attesting to your point. The defensive front, very solid. They filled the gaps very well.
And they rush the passer. I think they lead the league in sacks, but they also just give up a bunch of big plays. So
yeah, it's a hit. But they blitz a lot. So that's a big part of it. They get extra pressure there. So when you discuss how much they score, the Cornhuskers rank 104th in Division I with only 21.8 points per game. Yep. They hold an average of 359 yards a game, which is 90th in Division I. They rack up penalties. They have 24 violations, which has them kind of like 70th in the country. Mm-hmm. They have turnovers, which is pretty bad. But yeah, we talked about the defense.
Made a very big habit of throwing the ball to the other team in the first couple.
He needs to get back to triple option. He's not cut for this. They're only surrendering 18.5 points a game, which has them ranked 35th in the country. They've conceded 185 yards on the ground and 3 touchdowns, and 74 points in total. So they are, but they're giving a lot up in the air, which is 103rd in pass defense.
Yeah, so this will be a test. If Michigan runs the ball really well this week, that'll answer some questions, right? This will be a test for Michigan's ground game. So it's a little different. They blitz a lot. They drop 8. They do all kinds of crazy stuff. So if they can run the ball in this game, though, I think that'll be a really good sign. They don't need to run the ball for 300 yards. It'd be cool if they did, but I think they're going to try to remain balanced. But if they run the ball for 150, 200, and throw the ball for 200, like, they'll walk out of there with a 3 or 4 touchdown win and move on. I think that's kind of the recipe. So.
Yeah. So final score here. What's your prediction for the final score?
Again, I just don't see a lot of teams scoring a ton of points. No team has scored more than 7 this year so far on Michigan. So I will give Nebraska 7. I'm actually going to give them 10.
I was gonna say I'm giving him
I'm
10,
gonna give them
but
10. They're at home. I think Matt Rule is a good coach, especially in college. So I think I'll have a pretty good plan. I'm gonna go 35-10. Just pretty simple. 5 touchdowns, nothing crazy. It's gonna look not fun. I mean, but Michigan, there will be no doubt the entire game who's gonna win, but it'll just kind of be one of those like okay type of games.
yeah, I'm picking 10 as well. But I will go a little less. I'm gonna say 27-10. Um, yeah, again, I don't think there's ever gonna be a doubt. I just think that they're gonna come out a little sluggish again. It's still being like the Cornhusker fans do show up. Like that's all they have. So they're there.
They had nothing else to do on Saturdays, so
Yeah, maybe a bowling alley, really dark bowling alley. But um yeah, I like Nebraska though. Like I said, I have a lot of family out there. I've always enjoyed watching Nebraska's games, so I always look forward to when Michigan does play Nebraska. But I don't see them talking any trash to me this year. That's for sure.
I think Michigan players said something about how Nebraska's fans were the nicest fans they've ever dealt with in a like they thought they were joking like because they were so nice. Like Blake Corum was just like, yeah, they were like too nice. It was weird.
Like
Like I wanted
Canadians.
them to. He's like, I wanted them to like talk crap to me, and they didn't. It was weird.
Well, they don't really have a whole lot of reason to talk crap. That's
No,
the other
but
thing.
remember when Michigan last played there, it was a very close game at night.
I remember
Michigan had to come back.
they came to play. They came to play that game too.
Michigan had to come back. That was Scott Frost really trying to figure it out there. It wasn't his last hurrah, but that was his probably his
That
best
was
game.
I was gonna say that was probably one of the best games he's ever coached, and it turned out to be
Yep,
a
and they
loss, but
still
definitely,
lost.
you know,
So
but that
they
was a
still
good
blew
Michigan
it.
team. Yeah, I mean that Michigan team was good too. So
Adrian Martinez fumbling blew the game.
former Detroit Lion Adrian Martinez. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, then we'll recap this next week, and then as we go forward, we'll look at the Minnesota game after that. And I'm pretty sure they had a bye week somewhere after that. I don't know if it's a bye week, Minnesota
We
or
don't have a bye
Indiana.
week till after Michigan State.
Oh, so it's before Purdue. Okay.
Yep. So let's see. So it's I looked at this the other day because I was like, dang, they got like a lot of games in a row. So they've this week, 3:30 on Fox. By the way, we haven't been on Fox yet, I don't think.
Oh, that
Um,
means we might get Gus Johnson. Oh, they're noon
nah, Gus
kickoff,
John.
aren't they?
It's not Gus and Joel Klatt though.
Oh, I love Joel Klatt and
No,
Gus,
we
but
will get them for Penn State and Ohio State for sure though. That's already determined. Um, but and then it's a night game the week after that against Minnesota, and then they have Indiana at on 10:14, and then they have Michigan State on 10:21, and then they have a bye. So they have
okay.
a
So
bye
they
the
won't
week
play again
following.
until November after that.
Yep, yep. So they could be they could be 1, 2, 3. They could be 8-0 before they get a bye. In fact, they should be 8-0 before they get a bye.
Yeah, and
And then they have
they could
the
potentially
gauntlet.
lose three in a row. They could potentially lose three in a row to end if they aren't really the Michigan team that we're expecting.
I still
But
don't think they'll lose to Maryland regardless, but yeah, they very easily could. I mean, at Penn State is tough. If I was
is that a
sitting here,
road game though in Maryland?
no, yeah, it's at Maryland. So they go at Penn State, at Maryland. They do get Ohio State at home, obviously, though. If I were to pick it right now, I still think they're the best team in the Big Ten. I mean, I know Penn State's looked really good, but they've had
Ohio
a
State just beat Notre Dame. But
okay. Notre Dame beat themselves
putting 10 players out there when it mattered most.
twice, two times.
Oh my gosh, it was definitely not the game they want. I watched I
Oh,
saw a meme. I saw a meme of touchdown Jesus, just like touchdown Jesus watching this game, and it was just like really sad and like smoking a cigarette. I'm just like, okay,
not thrilled about what happened there.
yeah, not
So
thrilled. Very boring.
it's really
But
interesting though because I think this is like as much parity as we've seen in college football this year is in a while. So it will be. I mean, The winner of the Big Ten East obviously is going to make the playoff, but then like, is there a one-loss team that can make it like last year? I don't know, because there's a lot of good teams. Like the Pac-12 has a lot of good teams this year, at least a lot of good quarterbacks. And
Pac-12 is trying to make a case that they should stick around.
yeah, well, that ain't gonna happen. There's no TV deal. The SEC, in fact, kind of stinks. Like Alabama.
I mean, outside of Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia's very good, but outside of Georgia, like Alabama, not great.
I think Bama might be done with it. Their dynasty might finally be.
Yeah, LSU turns out not very good. Ole Miss, not good.
Nick Saban could just retire. That'd be great.
He might. Dion would
Be
go
great
to
for college football.
Dion might go to Alabama then.
He would go down and
Go to Alabama. So, all right.
All right, man. We'll see you next week, and like I said, we'll talk about Minnesota preview, and then we'll recap the Packers game too.
Sweet.
All right, we'll see you.
Yeah.